Hey, Brother Charlemagne, how's things in North Carolina?
All is good, man. Can't complain.
That's what's up.
LA.
Well, I tell you, it's hot in Louisiana. It's really hot down here. So, but other than that, it's pretty good. Looking to make sure this hurricane doesn't head our direction. Prayers and thoughts for the folks in Puerto Rico, where they fortunately that it's not a big tropical number that's headed to them, or a big hurricane category rather that's headed to them. So just thoughts on that. And of course, it being Sunday, looking at the news and really trying to pick out stories that our people need to know about, like the food prices going up because of what happened with the railroad situation. And so hopefully, it won't go up too much because Biden was able to stop the strike. But you still are seeing food prices increase by 14% this year. So I want our folks to know about that. So let me go ahead and get to some of these headlines. Thanks for coming in. This is Your Black News. We do this every night. Excuse me, Monday through Sunday. Monday night news is particularly around money. Tuesday night news is around tech. Wednesday night news is around health. Thursday night is around art and creativity. Friday night is business, and Saturday night, last night, we had news on education. Tonight, our news and focus will be on policy and politics, and hopefully you'll join the club to definitely share any or clip anything that you feel is of interest to you. Our first story, we head to I was going to say Chicago. We head to Chicago is in our news, but we head to Atlanta for our first story, and I'm gonna pin that story to the room. Hey, Auntie Donna, thanks for tuning in. I know you're traveling from West Coast to East Coast, so appreciate you being able to tune in tonight. Um, so this story, we did cover some of this story, but not from the politics side of it. And I thought this was interesting when I went back to the story. The Politico has done this series called The Great Migration. And The Great Migration is covering Black cities that were considered Black, but are currently experiencing a Black exodus. So the first two cities they did was Chicago and DC. They're doing now is Atlanta. And so it is an interesting juxtaposition and balance of power that we are seeing in Atlanta. And this article from Politico tries to unpack that. I mean, you see a lot of the old guard, you see some guard, and it's where does that happen? What's happening with that, and how does that affect the politics? We know that Reverend Warnock was down 3 points. I believe this week he's up 3 points against Herschel Walker. Hopefully, Senator Reverend Warnock, because he is Senator Reverend Warnock. And I want to, hopefully make sure that hopefully that continues to stay the same. But we're going to cover that. And I want to just get to share my screen so folks that are watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube can see the same story that Clubhouse sees. Let me click on that and share it. Okay, cool. So, one of America's blackest city. In South Fulton, Georgia, two radically ideas about Black political power are vying for control. The fate of the city hangs in the balance. The interesting about Atlanta, though, when we're talking about Atlanta, and for the sake of this article, we're talking about Atlanta Metro. So they're including South Fulton, which is technically not Atlanta, the city proper. it would be compared to if you're saying New York City and you started talking about Yonkers. It's technically right on the edge of the Bronx, but not necessarily that Yonkers affects New York City, vice versa, right? But there is in Atlanta, because South Fulton was annexed and they voted to annex themselves from Atlanta, which earlier this year, Buckhead, which is in a dead center almost of Atlanta, was deciding and vying for annexing itself also. But as you go through this article and you start to read, you see a juxtaposition. Atlanta, the city, the blackest city, and then you see South Fulton. And it's like, well, aren't they about the same? And they're not. South Fulton has a tax base that's different. They have a different set of police. It's just a whole different scenario. And Atlanta itself, the city proper, is a lot different because you do have Buckhead, which remember was trying to annex itself out of Atlanta, which means the white folks are like, yo, we out. And also, not this past election for mayor, but the past election before that, when Keisha Lance Bottom won, she ran up against a white woman from Buckhead called Mary Norwood. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the Black powers that be, I'm gonna say, unfortunately, that was the term I was saying, in my opinion, but factually, the Black that be in Atlanta proper did not support Keisha Lance Bottom. They supported Mary Norwood. These are old school civil rights leaders, Black church leaders, a bunch of people. Even Stacey Abrams did not vote for, I'm sorry, I did vote, I should say that, did not endorse Keisha Lance Bottom until the Monday before the Tuesday for that election. So there's been kind of a growing rift, in Atlanta proper. Then we have South Fulton right next to Atlanta. And that's what this is talking about when you look at this article. Now, as you see on your screen, or if you're at the article, you scroll down, you want to go to this diagram, this GIF graphic that shows during the past 2 decades, Black population has grown 67% in Atlanta's metro area. In Fulton County, Atlanta's Black population fell as South Fulton doubled. So this is Metro Atlanta, which to me is not Atlanta, right? But for the sake of the census report does include Metro Atlanta. That's the areas around. As you see this diagram, you see a square box. Other areas in orange, all those are Metro Atlanta. So Stone Mountain, Decatur, Alpharetta, all these cities around. If you watch this TV show Atlanta by Donald Lawrence, is it Donald Lawrence or Donald Glover? You will see Atlanta proper pretty much, but they do some shooting on the outskirts of Atlanta proper. And as you go through this article, you see that the Black elite in Atlanta are what they are. As one example is gay, Christian, socialist, activist, Black nationalist, flight attendant, bus driver, Black Lives Matter organizer, and city council member. That's Kamal. This is, an example of somebody you see in Atlanta, and that's definitely there's all those titles, right? And it's a different space than Atlanta proper, because Atlanta proper, you have the daughter of Maynard Jackson, you have Martin Luther King's children. You have, it's a whole different flavor between South Fulton and Atlanta. And this is where it gets into how, to me, we lose our power base because we're not aligned. And at the same time, there's not a reason for us to be aligned because everyone has their own agenda. So it's a very interesting article. Get a chance to read it and share it with family and friends. about what will become of America's blackest city. I'm going to take a moment, Brother Charlemagne, any thoughts and comments, and I will also come back to our comments on LinkedIn.
Honestly, I'm still learning all that kind of learning. It's never been one of my favorite groups, you know what I'm saying? But it's interesting. It's an interesting concept of, like you said, my sister used to live in Stone Mountain, but she was just like, she ended up leaving there, but she used to live in Stone Mountain, and all the little suburbs out there, like you said, they're like, well, we're not learning, but then we talk to certain people, and they're like, oh, we are learning, so, I don't understand, how it flows down there. I guess it's like the DMV area, everything's kind of meshed together.
That's a good example of the DMV area, yeah.
But like you said, the separation of power, that definitely hurts when you cause a division, amongst each other and lose power in these areas that are flourishing for people of color. You know what I mean? So I hate that that's happening. And I was looking into the article a little bit, but I'm praying that, that they just come back together and try to resolve whatever issue it is beyond money. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the root of a lot of things. People just try to create their own tax base that we want. Somebody's pissed off that this didn't happen and that didn't happen. And that's why they try to do the separation. But yeah, man, this is crazy.
Charlemagne, the feedback I'm getting from the internet that's listening is that you sound a little muffled. Could you maybe move your mic around? I can understand you, but I also understand when we're rebroadcasting something, we gotta be a little bit clearer for the rebroadcast. So I don't know if that's possible, but I hear you, Sister Richardson, show friend. Thanks for the feedback. Trying to always improve on our show. Thank you to the shout outs from Vegas, from Atlanta. I see you, Dan. I see you. Someone else, Diane. I see you. Bobby is in the room, and also Donna and Josetta. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to go on to our next story that is focused on Black policy and Black politics. That story is going to be coming out of NPR, out of Florida. So we leave Georgia and we go over to the state that, we love to hate. Florida is something else, boy. And when we talk about policy and politics, Florida is a whole nother trajectory. So let me go to our Florida page and let me make sure I get that up for you guys. And if you're in Clubhouse, go ahead and take a look at that article while I try to find the Florida article for our folks who are watching. So activists in Florida say Black voters have seen their political power curtailed. This is coming from NPR, the radio station, and it's an article from August, but I wanted to really focus on, we see Florida in the news right now, and I wanted to just focus on this because I definitely think that's something to be keeping in mind as we mobilize against for midterms and against DeSantis and his way of thinking. We want to keep our brothers and sisters in Florida in prayer because they went through it and still going to go through it living there. So Florida, what happened to Black folks in Florida is that last year, Republican lawmakers in Florida passed a Senate Bill 90, a sweeping law requiring people to apply to vote by mail and more often. It's setting new limits on drop boxes. And this year also, legislators passed Senate Bill 524, which creates new and harsher penalties for voter registration organizations for things like turning in forms late. And typically, voter registration has been a thing that Black folks have been able to do. And of course, that law, and they created a new policing unit to focus on voter crimes. Like they really are doubling and tripling down on the concept that there's fraud in these votes. There's fraud in the votes, right? And of course, there was very little fraud found it. And, you know, on the other side of the table, I will say this, and I'm curious to see what people in the room think and everybody watching online. One of the interesting phenomenon, and I'm not, you know, by no means am I advocating for what the Republicans have done, but one of the interesting phenomena that I'm starting to see when I listen to voter registration, get out the vote efforts, activists around the country is we're going to follow the letter of the law. So on one side, Republicans like, okay, we're going to shut them down. We're going to make it harder to get the vote out. We're going to make it harder for people to register. And the response to that is to say, let us look at the actual law. What is the stipulation? And we're going to follow the letter of the law. So if that happens and everyone follows to the best of their ability the letter of the law, it will be almost impossible to continue with this thought that there was fraud. Also, it will show if the vote that we do come out and we do vote, and I think it will happen, particularly because of Roe versus Wade, that people come out and vote in higher numbers than any other midterm in the history of the United States, that voters were engaged even through all these hoops that they had to jump through. So no fraud, possibly, or very little fraud, which you had already, but they put up all these hoops. And the other side of the table, it shows a voter, the electorate is engaged. And I'm wondering what people think about this online and also in the room. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Oh, Auntie Donna's actually on the plane. Well, shout out to you listening on the plane. As she flies from the East Coast to West Coast. Please have a safe flight. But I'm interested, you know, in finding out what folks think. What are some of the outcomes that can happen because of the supposed chilling effect that these new laws will have? Charlamagne, you're in North Carolina. Has there been any crazy law passed in North Carolina?
No, not that I know of. I hope I sound a little bit better. I got the mic a little closer, so. But no, we haven't had anything crazy here as of yet.
Right, as of yet.
What they're working on here is trying to redistrict. Man, that's the only thing crazy that's happening here is redistricting. You know, just trying to space us out a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, but that's, like you said, that's for like local elections and things of that nature. But nothing's happening here. But it's like, you know, as you were saying, I think it's an intimidation factor.
Yes.
Versus a law. You know, they're putting the laws in place as intimidation.
Right.
And some people are going to be like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. I ain't got time. But like you said, if we come out in numbers and do what we're supposed to do, and you know, stand there, you know, and do what we need to do, you know, I think everything will go fine. But it's going to be a handful of us that's going to be like, you know what?
Gotcha.
You can't bring the bottle of water up there, and then somebody be like, then it becomes an altercation, you know what I'm saying, about a bottle of water. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think some people are going to shy away from it, but if we do what we're supposed to do, we'll have everything and just go ahead and vote and, you know, do our duties to vote and keep the administration pumping the way we need to go.
And to your point, you know, I think it should be an interesting governor's race with DeSantis versus Chris, who was a Republican, became a Democrat. Chris, I think DeSantis made his last stunt for sending 50 immigrants to Venezuela may backfire on him slightly, especially if the activists can prove that he actually took people against their will and trafficked them across state lines. And I don't think a state has ever been, accused of trafficking, but I'm pretty sure in today's climate, there's going to be some lawyer somewhere and also a judge somewhere that will be willing to hear that type of a case. So it'll be interesting, but I don't know if that's going to make a difference in close enough to the election. But I definitely think in the minds of immigrants, or people who have immigrated to America, that wasn't a good look what they saw on a couple of days ago. One thing I did want to get to, go back to you, Brother Charlamagne. I think what it is, your mic is, it sounds like you kind of have your hand, that's not you, I know you don't have your hand in front of the mic, but I'm wondering is it moving further back from the mic? And that's, can help a little bit. I'm not sure, but it does sound a little bit, I'm hearing what Cheryl said.
I'm actually on my beats, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm actually on my beats.
So now you sound a little different. Just now when you said "oh," you sounded clearer without the kind
that's
of.
What I'm saying. I don't know what it is because I'm on my beats and I haven't had a problem before, but I don't know. But you already know this terminology, it's always so.
Yeah. And I think I have you turned up all the way. Yeah, that might be a thing too. I might have you too loud. So okay, cool. Thank you, Sister Cheryl Fran, for letting us know about that. The next article I want to go to is coming out of Chicago. I thought it was really interesting, an article about the Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and where what it seems to appear to, this is from the Chicago Tribune. I'm not sure if it's a paywall article or not, but what it seems to imply that there may be a problem with Mayor Lightfoot's into the Black voter. I find that interesting, and yet, I don't know if they got that one right. I think that the average Chicago citizen that voted for her will probably vote for her again. And yeah, I can't see it on the computer, but I can see it on my phone. So if you go to, I'm not gonna be able to show you guys online. Sorry, guys. But if you don't have access to Chicago Tribune, there's an article about Mayor Lightfoot and what's at stake in the 2023 election, which is not, for a year. So she can definitely make some changes and actually get some, further folk to vote for her in a year. But it should be interesting. She's done a lot for the city, and she's definitely brought a lot of money. I believe last time I checked, it was close to $1 billion she brought in to the hood. And I don't know that many mayors of Chicago that brought that much money to the hood. So, in an interesting side note, she's accused the conservative super PAC of darkening her skin for a ad that boosted the GOP candidate who's running this year in the governor campaign. And so it's like they made her super dark. And you can see that in the article I'm going to put in the room. So I don't know. I don't think that she's really in trouble. I don't think that she's, I don't see it. I think that she's not super loved in Chicago, but I don't think that she's really going to be that much in trouble. And I don't know if anybody's been following the Chicago governor's race, but that is a hilarious race. This guy, the Democrat that's governor, he gives 0 Fs. That's all I say. Like he really gives 0 Fs. Does not care. He's unapologetically Democrat and brings it hard. So I don't know. I think she was going to benefit from that, and I just don't see Mayor Lightfoot unless she does something really stupid. And of course, unfortunately, I don't want to ramp up the rhetoric about what people have been saying, but I do want to alert our listeners to it. There is a a meme going around and also articles going around, predominantly in the conservative newspapers and stuff, around the purge in Illinois, which means that they're saying because there are laws that have been changed about who has to spend time in jail with no bail, and those laws have changed, and they're now also going to release some folks who have been in custody waiting trial. They're deeming that the purge of Chicago. And on Clubhouse, there have been some rooms I saw, that doesn't talk about the nuance of bail and only talks about that these criminals are going to be released to the streets of Chicago. So I could see that situation, if it does turn ugly and bad, that Mayor Lightfoot may be dinged for that. But at the same time, between the governor and she's no joke. She doesn't back down easily, and also the Cook County prosecutor DA. Between the three of them, I think they are going to stand on law and order and arrest people who do things that need to be arrested for. We'll see if that works or not, but that's one thing to kind of watch for upcoming in the Chicago political arena. But definitely that governor's race. Check out that governor's race. He's hilarious and phenomenal at the same time. Someone said in the chat, do you guys see the horns they painted on her forehead above her eyes? And it's definitely lighting, to your point, Josetta. It does look like it's horns, but it's the light, her forehead, and how the light hit her forehead. And when you darken pictures, those light spots come up really easily. And Sister Lightfoot has a decent sized forehead, so and that's what happens when the light hits it. But in my picture, I don't see the horns, but I definitely think that they definitely darken the picture with specific scenario. Let's talk about a different picture. I'm looking through the article, make sure there's no other picture. Yeah, that's the only one. That was lighting angle, but definitely enlightened. You can see the light kind of spots in the other picture if you make it wide. Any family or friends in the room who are in Chicago and want to come up and speak or talk to Chicago politics, feel free to raise your hand. We're definitely here for it. And online, let me just check in online to see if any folks have said anything. Okay, Cheryl Friend says, you sound way clearer now, Charlamagne. So shout out, that's what's up. Yeah, this is, there's people laughing about the picture is really pretty bad. But it's politics, right? That's what they do in politics. But I'm glad to see that she's calling them out on it. And that's what's up. The next article we're going to talk about is food prices. I want to make sure that our family and friends are aware of the changes in the, which were predicted this week if there was a rail strike. But even so, the takeaway for me in this article that I'm going to share is also that food prices have steadily been going up. Excuse me, and I didn't realize by how much. It is crazy how much these food prices have gone up. And so I wanted to make sure that we're aware of that, and we're passing that information on to family and friends, to just prepare. You may not want to spend a lot of money this Christmas on, stuff, and start to, stack your money so you can deal with the increases of the cost of food that was probably going to happen. I'm going to post that to the room in 1 minute, maybe not 1 minute, but 30 seconds. And this article is coming out of also Illinois, but it's around farming and food prices soaring. To look at that in the room, I'm going to change the article online so folks can see it on our broadcast online. And where is it? I know I have food prices. There we go. Cool. So we know that we were expecting a rail strike. Fortunately, we did not have a railroad strike, but gasoline prices had increased. And what this article shows that from this year to last year, prices rose 8.3%. And then they're expecting food prices to rise even more. So I really want folks to be aware of this and to plan accordingly, just like we did with the educational crisis. And we got out there and we made sure we beat the drum that come September and August, it's going to be a teacher crisis. So be prepared, get ready. The same thing with these food prices. As we go through this article, you'll see, from potato prices rose 2%, butter jumped up almost 2%, canned fruit jumped up 3.5%, flour was up 2%. It's just so. Chicken prices jumped up 17% from last year. Egg prices have surged 3%, and it's just, this is crazy. So I want to make sure our family and friends we're watching the food price inflation and preparing ourselves accordingly. Have you observed an increase in prices there in North Carolina, Brother Charlamagne?
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. 'Cause by me being a veteran, I still tend to go on base and shop using the commissaries, and they're typically, a little cheaper than out there in the market because it's no tax. They have a surcharge, but it's not really tax on the food. And I've seen a major increase there, so I was like, if it's increasing for us, the soldiers, yeah, I can imagine how it is in a regular economy. So I've seen a big, difference in, especially like you said, the eggs, the poultry, and a lot of the beef products. Shell products, they're pretty much the same right now. But I'm just wondering the way they purchase, from the surplus, if it's still the old pricing and the new pricing haven't hit yet. So, but yeah, I've seen a major increase on base. I really don't shop at Walmart and things like too much unless I just need to run get some real quick. But yeah, I've seen a dramatic increase on base. So, and the USDA had a video out last week about that price increase in the farmers, having increase in prices due to gas and other things and price of feed. So, yeah, like the old saying, S roll downhill. So it's rolling downhill to us, man.
Yeah, I would definitely align with that a lot. As a person living, and my wife cooks consistently throughout the week, fresh food is harder and harder to get, and having to turn to we definitely don't want to do can because the amount of sodium in cans is crazy. But the frozen stuff is also not so great, but it's a lot cheaper than the fresh organic stuff. So that's a challenge. Our next and final article of the night is also in the food arena. It's talking about debt relief for Black farmers, showing the challenges of pursuing racial equity with a policy. And this article is coming from NPR again. And, we've talked about this somewhat in the room, not really jumped into it completely. So although this article was produced in August when we were on a break, this is at the end of August, so I wanted to just kind of do an update on this story around Black farmers, their money being held up in lawsuits. A federal program to forgive loans for many Black farmers was ensnared in lawsuits, and that speaks to the Biden's administration's challenges to pursue racial equity through federal policy. This is an interview with the Department of Agriculture, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. And so one of the social justice Advocates is on this interview, and she leads the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, which I had no idea there was. The judge put the program, which was called, I think it was called a Black Farmer Debt Relief Program. White farmers in several states sued, and the judge put the program on hold. But when Congress just passed the Inflation Reduction Act, it repealed the debt relief program for Black and other minority farmers and replaced it with one that made zero mention of race, and aiming to help, quote, distress farmers and to experience discrimination. And so the question is, how do Black farmers feel about that? Because the thing that was in court was repealed. Now there's another thing replacing that, but in that language, there's no mention of Black or race or anything like that. And the advocate says the vagueness of the language leaves Black farmers to expect that the USDA won't actually ensure Black farmers receive the debt relief which they're due. And that's interesting. I think that we actually have to hold the administration's feet to the fire with this, and hopefully, the Black farmers have shown that they have the ability to organize and the ability to show up and advocate for themselves. I think as us consumers, we just talked about food prices, right? And if we were, hopefully some of us are intentional about where we buy our food, and we buy it, like here in Louisiana, we shop at a farmer's market. There's two farmers markets. There's a big one, and there's one that's just in the Black community. That's predominantly Black farmers selling food to the hood. And so being able to support both of those farmers markets is one way that I think we as consumers can definitely help the Black farmers out, obviously buy Black. But also another way is making sure if there's a hashtag or there's a tweet, is there anything we can share? We want to support the Black farmers. My family was farmer. They were tobacco farmers in North Carolina. And I grew up with a grandmother in the summer, Aunt Effie, my grandmother's sister, who would always make sure when we came down to North Carolina, we saw the hogs, the chickens, we shucked the green beans, and we definitely pulled some collard greens. And man, that's hard work. It's hard work. It's necessary work, but it's hard work. And those brothers and sisters that farm deserve to be paid. Charlamagne, are you seeing a resurgence among your neighborhood of Black people farming, or at least planting their own gardens?
Yes, actually, a lot of it's good. A lot of these young guys are actually getting their grandparents or great grandparents' farms back up and running there. So that's a good thing. But just touching on what you spoke about, it's a guy out of Virginia. He leads an organization of Black farmers. He's like liaison to the lobbyists and everything that's going on in DC. Reverend, I forgot his name. But he actually formed a co-op. And the problem with what's happening there with the co-op is a lot of these farmers are not getting information. And that's what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. These farmers in these rural areas of North Carolina, and I'm just speaking for North Carolina, they're not getting information in a timely manner to have rebuttals or talk for these things or so on and so forth to kind of join together so it'll be power in numbers. And I think this USDA, they're trying to change that now with some of the policies they're coming out with to try to develop the community relationship with the Black farmers. And like I said, I think it's just a band-aid for that legislation that was passed to help the Black farmers, but then the white farmers like, hey, we need help as well. Even though a lot of those farmers already have gotten their stuff, they're relieved because they handle the paperwork properly. Unfortunately, a lot of, the disconnect with a lot of our black farmers that I've seen in the last couple of weeks of dealing with it, just proper tax records, proper just use of their
Paperwork.
things of that nature. Yeah, it's paperwork. They just not they're just not on it because they're too busy, farming. And like I said, you go to some of these rural, the internet is basically non-existent, and they're not going to pay $200 or $150 a month for a satellite internet service. So that's the disconnect as well. So it's a big hurdle that has to be crossed, and it's probably some years down the road before it even catch up to the other farmers. But it's possible, it's doable. But at least they're trying to form some alliances in the communities and try to reach these farmers that has that disconnect. So maybe we'll see a change in the near future. And like you said, continue to buy local, continue to reach out to the farmers and say, hey, do you have products, you ready to sell? And another thing they was trying to do is let these farmers take EBT, because a lot of these farmers they don't have like the paperwork set up. So they're trying to get them set up so they can take SNAP and other forms of payments. So that would help them, keep up with cash flow and everything else. So when they ask for balance sheets, they have those things and everything will be in order. So it's just gonna be a process, man. It's gonna be a process.
Yeah, I totally agree with that and align with that. I want to go to some comments from the chat room for those folks who are on social media and watching us live on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. Bobby says she's with Josetta. The lighting aims 2 triangles over each eyebrow. That's the lighting for Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Lightfoot. Sophie says, what I noticed is the rolled sheet of paper is less and we're paying more. And I forget what room I was in that was explaining this. I want to say it was one of Miki's rooms. I believe it was about the Black family wealth in financial flowers. But there was a brother who works in logistics, and I forget the term he used, but he talked about how the packaging is made smaller, and the size is the cut. No, sorry, the size of everything inside the package is made smaller, but the package size stays the same amount, and you're paying a little bit extra or the same price for less. And that, he says, is because a lot of companies have actually access to less items to sell because of logistics happening with Russia, and also with China. China's going through a very bad economic period right now. Actually, new buildings they just built. And it's also political too that they're doing that. But anyway, my point is that you're absolutely right, Sophie, and that it's a standard operating procedure, and that's something we have to just watch out for. If you go to Well Financial Flowers on Clubhouse, go through the replays. I believe it's the one you're going to see about Black family debt or Black family wealth. I think it's a third show down. So really, there were 2 people in there who, one is dealing with logistics and packaging, and the other person is dealing with shipping. And they were experts, and they were just giving us gems about where we are as a country right now and what's happening, not so much the Black community, but just in general, the American consumer is going through, that the American consumer may not even realize they're going through. So there's that. And what was I going to say? Okay, so cool. I'm going to go back over to online and just check in his comments. Cheryl friend says, makes me want to go back to my grandfather's farm. Yep. I think we just have to start, we're going to start here at home here. We're going to start raising our own herbs. So oregano, thyme, mint, all those, little things. I think if we all start to grow our own stuff, and we fortunately have a pretty empty closet where we can put that vertical farm. You go to Amazon, you can start to see some, for at least herbs. You can almost like a stair or a step ladder type of shelf that can be built, and there's lighting that goes on a shelf and that within your house. That's initially what first thing we're gonna do. I want to experiment with growing our own shrimp in the tank here. Wife's not totally down for that yet, but I'm working on her. Put some seaweed in there, be like just like the fresh water shrimp. So, yep, gotta have garlic powder, garlic and onion powder. Yeah. I don't know if we'll be able to grow garlic in their house. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it might. It might. There's actually a really good article that Bobby sent me in our online. Hold on a second. Bobby Booker. Bobby sent me a really good article about a sister that has a program to teach you how to grow. I want to put that link in here to grow at home in a plastic tub. I believe it was. Yeah, plastic tub. You can grow different vegetables. I haven't done a lot in that space, but I definitely am open to seeing how difficult that is because, like we said earlier, the food prices are not changing, and we have children, even making lettuce, tomato, and ham sandwiches or turkey sandwiches or whatever you want to make. It's expensive. Just the lettuce is like good lettuce at least, not the iceberg stuff that just dissipates when you touch it. But the good organic lettuce or lettuce that's just pulled out of the ground, that's difficult to get. I wanted to also just let folks know on Monday we have Black Money conversation news, and then Tuesday Black Tech news, Wednesday Black Health news, Thursday Black Creativity news, Friday Black Business news, Saturday Black Education, and Sunday Black Policy. I thought that was right here, Bobby. I was just trying to scroll through these messages to find this article. Well, I'll find it and post it tomorrow night in the news because it was a really good article. Wait, do we find? Nope, the 6 most expensive houseplants. Nope, didn't find it yet. Okay, so I'll find it and make sure I post it tomorrow for those in the room. And actually, if anybody's interested in that article, put your name in the chat so I can send it directly to you. But it's a really good article about growing stuff in a plastic tub at home. And she's got instructions and all kind of cool things, steps to take to grow at home in your plastic tub. Charlamagne, any final thoughts?
One thing.
Oh, dang. Hold on a second, Charlamagne.
Like your community, community leaders that ask about community farming, because that's what makes me think. It's like they're taking vacant lots and putting corn or things that's easy to grow versus in the climate. So talk to community leaders and try to talk about community farming and get that going as well, because it's one city here, Rocky Mountain, they do it, and it's going pretty good for that city. And it helps out, like I said, it helps the community. Some of the grocery stores don't like it, but it definitely helps the community and keeps things kind of reasonable for the community. So definitely ask your community about it.
Thank you, Brother Charlamagne. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And, as we always say every night, please keep your head on a swivel. We know that we're actually targets in our own community. These mass shootings and these killings are happening right in our own community. So please keep your head on a swivel. Please be observant where you are and make sure that, you know, you walk. As soon as you have that inkling that you maybe shouldn't be there, it's time to bounce. It's time to go. Don't even second guess yourself, you know. Definitely observe and let your spirit guide you. All right, y'all, be safe, and we'll see you back tomorrow night. Have a blessed evening, and